Hello there, it's James B. Welcome to my vodcast. This is January 31st. January? Where did you go? Okay, well, Happy New Year for the last time. I stopped saying that as of February 1st. I've got a week of listings for you, and coming up in just a little bit, Julie Michels will talk about her singing career, her solo career, her stuff with Broadway, some of her great influencers, and some of the people she's been working with for decades. We're going to Julie Michels in here in just a moment. Meanwhile, want to thank a couple of quick sponsors. I want to thank barberfinancial.com. Captain Paul Barber can help you with your finances, and he has helped me, and if he can help me, well, he can help you. Also, Barbarian Steakhouse. It's delicious in there. 7 Elm Street. It's a great place to take someone for a special occasion. It's a great place to go anytime for a nice fancy lunch. One of my favorite places. And of course, everyone at Patreon, thank you for sticking with me. It's been a fun ride, and it continues. I'm going to keep telling people what's happening in the clubs. I'm giving you a week of club listings right now. And all of the clubs I'm mentioning, these 4 clubs, they also support live music. They help support the podcast. I support them. It's all good. I want to start with Hughes Room Live today. Mid-Jour is in town. You may remember the band Ultravox. I have all the records when John Fox sang with them, then Mid-Jour. Mid-Jour had that hit song, Old Vienna. Oh, his voice is so dreamy. And he is in here. So you got to check him out. Probably sold out, but check hughesroomlive.com. Dan Byrne is there tomorrow. He wrote songs for the movies Walk Hard, Get Him to the Greek, over 25 albums. And he's up from California, so you might want to get reservations for that one too. You always want to get dinner reservations and then hang out and have a great show. Sunday, Sonia Johnson is in town from Montreal. Her new record is Chrysalis. I've been playing it on Jazz FM. It's pop meets jazz. She's got a lovely voice, and she's very famous in Montreal, so let's show her some Toronto hospitality, right? Get down there, have some food, enjoy a great show. Monday, Donna Garner has about 20 actor-musicians performing. It's a new musical theater company, so it's a launch for her. It's a bit of a kickoff at a party. They'll be raising funds and lots of music. February 4th, Jenny Tai and Jack Semple are performing. And on the Wednesday the 5th, Trumpet Rhapsody, chamber music featuring trumpet and piano. Sounds great, and flugelhorn and all kinds of other stuff, but it sounds really cool. Chamber music at Hughes Room Live. And finally, on February 6th, on Thursday, JV's Boogaloo Squad, and they're doing the music from the Beatles. JV is a great B3 player. He plays organ, keyboards, piano, whatever has keys on it, he'll play it. Great little band, and they really groove, so that'll be fun. Old Mill Homesmith Bar. Old Mill Toronto is a marvel. If you haven't been in that building, what are you waiting for? Walk around. Get lost in this beautiful old castle-looking thing. Homesmith Bar is a classy place to have a drink, have a bite. Probably the best lounge, I think, in town, because honestly, when you think about hotel lobbies, how many have great musicians like these guys? Tonight, Bill King Trio, live at the Homesmith Bar. 7:30 to 10:30, no cover, $20 minimum. Lots of parking and very close to the Old Mill subway station. You can walk there in about a minute. Saturday, Karn, Davidson, Ferrugia, and Downing. William Karn, the great trombonist, his wife, Tara Davidson, the great saxophonist and composer, Adrian Ferrugia on piano, Andrew Downing on bass. Sounds like a plan. That's Saturday night. And now, Tuesday the 4th, I get so excited about Gene Denovi. He's over 90. He's a great storyteller. Worked with Johnny Mercer, knew Duke Ellington. This guy can tell stories, play piano and sing. You can't miss it. It's amazing this guy's doing this so long, and he is forever young. John Sherwood is there on Wednesday the 5th. John Sherwood, a fantastic piano player. You've probably seen him play with Peter Appleyard over many, many years. He's also a great solo artist, and we're so glad he's coming to town. Lenny Solomon is there, the great violinist, on Thursday the 6th. And on a week tonight, I'm giving you a heads up because they sell out way in advance. Canadian Jazz Quartet with Danny Mackerlane. I shouldn't say sell out. They don't take reservations, but people get there early. So next Friday, if you're going down, try to get there by like 6:30, 7 o'clock, or you probably won't get a seat. All right, Lula Lounge. Miguel de Armaz. Yeah, I can say that. Miguel de Armaz is there early, then Cafe Cubano a little bit later, DJ Suave. You basically can go in there at like 6:37 for dinner, have some live music, have some dance lessons, have some more live music, have some more dancing to a DJ. The whole night is about dancing and great music and great food. Also, Salsotica on Saturday. Not tiki, tika. Salsotica is on Saturday, and they always do salsa dancing on Saturdays at Lula. And Sunday, oh my, they're real busy. The Lula Drag Brunch, Clash of the Queens. You get to see drag queens while you're having brunch. $49 includes the brunch and an outrageously fun show. It's been a big hit over there. And later in the day, from 4:30 till 10 p.m., it's a fundraiser to get T. Batu to Brazil. T. Batu, a drumming group. It's going to be a major party there all day Sunday at Lula Lounge. And Thursday, I host a one-stop vocal jazz safari. That is an event for Jazz FM 91. And it's for people who donate $250 or more per year, and they can choose to go to this event. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out jazz.fm, and you can read up all about it. Oh, and I should mention, I also have an event coming up a week Thursday at Lula Lounge. It's called the Tiki Love Affair. Jessica Lalonde, Katie George, Genevieve Marentet, and Irene Torres will all sing love songs with an amazing band. It's on February the 13th for people too much in love to wait till the 14th. Okay? And now over to Jazz Bistro. Eliana Cuevas will be performing tonight. She's got a beautiful band. Her last record is her best ever. You will love her. And on Saturday, Jeremy Ledbetter is performing with his band, and he's also sitting in with Eliana, I believe. But anyway, it's a great weekend. If you love world music, you're going to love this. Debbie Botosh is there on the 4th. Yes, another Botosh, Robbie Botosh and Frank and Norbert, and the list keeps going. Joseph. Well, Debbie is a wonderful guitar player, and you want to see her performing on the 4th. That's a Tuesday. Wednesday is the David Rebell Jazz Jam, always a hit. And a week, Thursday, Carl Bray is a CD launch. That's on the 6th, and Carl Bray is a genius piano player. He's a young guy, but he's making big waves, and that's going to sell out. So you want to check out jazzbistro.ca. All right, we are going to Julie Michels right about now to find out about her love of music and all kinds of interesting things. Here we go, Julie Michels. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Julie Michels, I met you in the early 90s.
8,000 years ago.
Right.
Yes.
You are the first live jazz singer I ever saw in my life, and I didn't know. I thought it was folk music, and I'm...
Really?
Yeah. I thought it was the most complicated and entertaining folk music I'd ever heard. It was just you and George Koller in the Beaches. I think it was 1992. Just the two of you in the Beaches.
Yep.
I could not believe what I was hearing. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thank you.
what a story.
Wow, we were both, what, 12? Yeah,
Well, what was the first music you remember hearing?
Oh, easy. Easy. It was two things. It was Holst's Planets, Jupiter, which to this day is one of my favorite pieces of music, and it was Lee Wiley. Lee Wiley, because my father, that was his favorite singer. And we had we had records for the hi-fi when I was growing up. I was a little girl and we had a Grundig.
Now, were you in New Jersey at this time?
No, I was in Germany. We were in Munich. And I was a little girl, and my parents are both they love music. My father can't carry a note in a bucket, but my mother is musical theater trained. And they both love jazz and they both love classical music. And then my mother discovered the Beatles, and that was like a whole nother, and Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66, oh my God, they were the coolest people I'd ever seen. I still sing Mais Que Nada.
Right. I agree with you, that song and that band, whatever TV show they were on, it was the most riveting performance, right?
They were wonderful.
For white kids to go, oh my word, Brazil, I want to go to Brazil.
I know, and the really neat thing is when you listen to them, part of it was their whole style thing. Like, they were the coolest looking people in the world. But it was also, they were singing in unison. They were singing in unison, but with such a sense of rhythm and time, and nobody was doing bossa nova. Nobody was doing samba. And they came in and they just kind of blew blew the doors out of everything. It's like Richie Valens when he did La Bamba. Like these are turning points and the beginnings of world music, I think.
Right.
A world music
Stan
identity.
Getz as well, right?
Stan Getz, oh my gosh. And so, but it was Lee Wiley singing I'll Take Manhattan, and it was Holst's Jupiter, and I remember Holst, that was also the first time I'd ever been to this, when I was a very little girl, that was the first piece I ever saw in a symphony, and I was about 5 or 6. It was Young People's Symphony in New York City with Bernstein conducting.
Whoa.
And my aunt took me, and I remember in the middle of it, at the very end, when, you know, the part of the piece where Land of Faith and Glory, it comes into it, and I was told, and I seem to remember this, I stood up in my seat, and I'm looking around, and someone next to me said, "What are you doing, dear?" I said, "I'm looking for him. He must be here." I was so absorbed, and I realized then I completely lose myself in most great music.
Right, in any style of music.
In any style of music. I mean, I stopped Madama Butterfly when I was about 7. Why my aunt took me to, who takes a 7-year-old girl to Madama Butterfly? But I'm sitting there, and it comes to the very end where the soprano's going to commit seppuku, and I stood up because I was a little radical feminist back then. Stood up and said, "Don't do it! It's his fault!" And the soprano stopped for a minute and looked, and I remember her face. She almost laughed. She got a hold of herself. She finished. Everybody else laughed, and afterwards, one of the managers of the company came to us. They found us, and they said, "We'd like to see you backstage." And I'm thinking, I'm gonna get yelled at. I was bad. It was a soprano, and she said, "It's okay. See, I'm okay. I didn't really die, but thank you, because you must really love opera." I said, I didn't think it was fair. He gave you a baby and then he ran off, and that wasn't right. She's laughing. My aunt is no longer going to kill me. But it's like I've always, so opera, jazz, rock and roll, gospel, anything, gospel, blues. There's so much music, and it's so, if you open yourself up to it, it is a visceral experience when it's the right thing. It's visceral and it's holy.
You're Jewish, yet you're one of the best gospel singers I know, and Christmas carols. How does that work?
He was a rabbi. Why shouldn't I sing? No, you know what? It's interesting because I don't know, the music always spoke to me. Again, my mother brought in some music on little 45s, and I listened to Aretha Franklin, and I was like, oh, what is this? Or I listened to Marian Makeba singing Pata Pata.
I love that song.
I know, it's a great song, right?
And so joyous.
And so joyous. And the interesting thing is the B-side to that 45 is Ballad of the Sad Young Man. Oh yeah, right? So I know, one of the heaviest, heartbreaking pieces of music. But I listened to these singers, and I listened to Harry Belafonte, who you and I had an experience with many, many years ago. And to get an Namaste from Harry Belafonte was like one of the best things in my life.
Right. In fact, we can go there for a moment. Let's digress.
Oh God, that was
singing for Harry Belafonte when he's directly in front of you, looking at you.
And no one could see one another because of the horrible. They didn't give us enough room for everybody to see one another. No one could, and the song started to tank, and the poor music director up on stage couldn't see anybody to direct them, and everything started failing, and I went, okay, everybody, watch me. And I started conducting, and we were able to finish the piece. And at the very end of it, everybody's cheering because they saw what we went through. And the song, I think, might have been Here Comes the Sun. I don't remember. And isn't that terrible? I don't remember. And people stood up. And Harry Belafonte stood up and put his hands together and bowed it, and gave me a namaste, and it was like, oh, I can die now. One of the most beautiful, talented men in the world has just given me a namaste. Okay, I'm good. I can,
It was Here Comes the Sun.
Was it?
Because
Yeah.
you later in the show
choir.
you did Sir Duke, and there was no mistake. But in Here Comes the Sun, you're right. The band couldn't see each other, and it was a new tune for them. Yeah.
And the choir couldn't see who
Robert Scott.
Robert, and poor Robert was trying so hard to hold it all together because he's a hell of a pianist, and we just couldn't get lines of sight, and it was, and he was just so wonderful.
Who else have you played for that blew your mind as you're singing? You look in the audience and go, ah.
Let me think. Annie Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of blew my socks off.
Was that in Toronto or New York?
In New York. And then I was in Vinx Barrett in Amsterdam, or not in Amsterdam, in where were we? We weren't in Bremen. Maybe we were in Bremen. Anyhow, and then a couple that it's just been interesting. The first time I ever went to the North Sea Festival, and I was playing with a little band from Amsterdam called Swing Support, and great guys. Oh my gosh! And they just needed a singer, and they didn't know me, and I didn't know them, and we just sat. We did a couple of local gigs, and they said, "Listen, we're playing at the North Sea Festival, and we'll pay." To bring you out there, and I was living in Zeist at the time, which is near Den Haag, and I went, and Betty Carter and John Hendricks, those people kind of freaked me out, because first I met Betty Carter backstage. She literally walked off a plane. She was exhausted. She was in not a very good mood. No sound check, no nothing. Her entire band was 21 years old, and this was in 1991, and the bass player, I remember, was dragging just a little bit, and she got in his face, snapping like an inch from his nose. He's sweating buckets, but he kept on time, and I watched her, and I learned, because I thought the stage is it reinforced something that I learned when I was at school, when I was studying. The stage has to be yours. You have to be in control. And I had learned it the hard way at the university where I studied jazz with Richard Davis, and it was, he wouldn't. He said, "You've got to be in control. You've got to have absolute control of that stage."
Right. Since I've known you, you've always had control of that stage.
Yeah. Thank you. But I remember running up to her. We were all backstage because we all had passes, and there was Betty Carter. And I went, Miss Carter, I'm so sorry to bother you. You must be exhausted." And she went, "I am, baby." And I went, "But I need to tell you, I'm here because of you. I'm here because I've been listening to you since I was little, and you inspire me, and what you did today, you must be so tired, but you brought it. You were so wonderful." And she gave me that smile, that incredible Betty Carter smile, and she hugged me. And that was another time I could have just died right there in her arms. I was like, Betty Carter is hugging me. And she said, "When are you playing, honey?" I said, in about an hour, but only in a little stage. She said, "I'll be there." Sure as hell, she was in the back and gave me another one of those smiles. Oh my gosh. And, so.
I have one for you. You may not want to share this one, but
you're going to tell.
I'm going to ask about it. You don't know. Nina Simone. Sorry, you had a sip of coffee at the time.
I love it. Okay, so I was going to Europe in 1990 for the first time. I had letters of introduction from Richard to a bunch of people, which was a godsend. One of the people that I'd been corresponding with by mail was Nina Simone. He introduced us. He gave her my tape, my little cassette tape. And Richard is an imp. because he didn't give her the cover, which had my picture on it. He gave her just the cassette. So she's listening. She said, yeah, I'll come. Tell her to come and see me in Paris. So I go to see her in Paris, and I'm dressed up, and I'm nervous. I haven't slept. It's like crazy. I'm going to meet Nina Simone. And I go to her apartment, I knock on the door, and she opens the door, and she looks me up and down. She says, yeah. I said, hi, my name is Julie Michels, and I have an appointment to see you. She said, well, you've seen me. She slammed the door in my face. It's like, I don't look like what I sound like to some people. And it was pretty obvious that I was not what she was expecting. But I walked away bemused because all I could think of was, man, I could eat lunch off this forever. Like Nina Simone slammed a door in my face. Like, how cool is that? Right?
Also, this happened again with the band Chunko Funk.
Yes.
You sang with the band Chunko Funk. What a fantastic live band that
they
was.
were amazing.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
So the same thing happened, right?
Right. They specialized in funk and disco from, the height of the era.
Yeah, late 70s especially.
Late 70s, and they did the whole costume thing and the clothes, and it was really funny because I showed up for the audition and they looked at me, they said, I said, is there an issue here?
Because they'd heard the cassette, but again, never seen your photo.
They'd never seen my face. And they said, well, ma'am, we thought you, frankly, were a large black woman. And I went, well, I'm not. And especially back then, I was a trainer, right? So I was like this big. And
shocking red hair.
And, a glass of milk with legs.
Very pale.
Oh, very pale. And, it was so funny. I said, you gonna let me sing or not? They said, well, and I said, make up your mind. Make up your mind. And the first night we ever played together, I wore a dress, and they went, oh my God, where did you get that dress? Did you get it at Courage, my love? Did you get it down in, I said, at Fairview Mall. I got it at Le Chateau in the 70s when I was wearing it the last time. It was funny. Yeah, that was.
But it was a great band, and you did sound like an authentic singer, like Patti LaBelle or somebody.
And that was one of the best things. I mean, we did Lady Marmalade, right? And it was just, because that was the thing with the audition. They were like, well, we're not sure. And I went, she met Marmalade down in old New Orleans. They said, oh my God. I went, are we good now? Are we good? Because can we move on? Because they're a bunch of white kids. It's like, why shouldn't you? Look, we are what we are. We are what we are. And I don't, you ask me why I sing gospel. It's like, I sing gospel because if I could find a shul that would let me swing my eighth notes and wail, I would have become a cantor years ago. But that's not the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for a gentleman years ago who was very orthodox in his practice of Judaism, and I am very much not. But he said, I hear you're a singer. I said, yeah. He said, are you any good? I went, yeah. Because you should own who you are, right? And I went, yeah. And he said, so how important is it to you, really? And I went, I know this question. I said, look, you're an Orthodox man. He said, yes. I said, so you're in the winter going to need to take time so you can pray in the afternoon before the sun goes down. He said, well, yes. I said, when I sing, whether it's gospel or jazz or cabaret or folk music or anything, it is how I speak to the universal ear. It is how I speak to God. And if I'm very, very, very lucky, I get the vague impression that it heard a note or two. So I told him, I'll respect your orthodoxy. I would expect you to respect mine. And he went, oh, that's good. I went, oh, goody. Did I get the job or not? He said, yeah, you got the job. I said, groovy. But to me, all my company, my actual company is called Sutra. Not because of Kama, because of all the other sutras. And because those are the sutures that hold the universe together. That's where we get the word. And I think all art is an act of devotion. You know, everything we do as artists, if you do it with an open heart and an open mind, is...
We've been given the gift of creativity, right?
Exactly. These are spiritual gifts. And I had a friend years and years ago who was the bishop of a Caribbean Baptist spiritual church where I could come in and sing. He would invite me for his birthday and certain things. And I was the only blue-eyed person in the building. You dig? Like I was... And he said, and one day I came to him, I was so sad, and he said, until you do the thing that you were put here to do, you will be miserable. You can't look the gift in the mouth. You've got to be who you are. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to get there, but now that's the commitment.
You made a bunch of records, so we'll start with George Koller. 2 records with George Koller.
Yes.
Singing Naked and Bass and Voice. How did you guys find each other?
I was in a little trio with a guitarist named Wayne Cass, who's a lovely man, a great guitarist, and Artie Roth, who is a marvelous bass player and just such a good man, such a sweet guy. And it was really, and we clicked. We had a great thing. And one day, Artie went to New York to have a master class with someone or a lesson with someone, I remember. And he'd gotten a grant for it and everything. He was going to study with this guy. But it was right, we were having a gig. And oddly enough, we were having a gig at a little cafe bar above the YMCA on Grosvenor, the downtown YMCA, which for those of you who are not from Toronto is a very classy YMCA, like it's very chic.
Big one.
Big one, very shishi and poo-poo. And Artie couldn't make the gig. And so Wayne said, oh, I called this guy. He's just off the road, but he's a good bass player. He's really good. You're going to like him. I said, okay. And back then I wasn't used to switching. I wasn't quite as comfortable changing guards, you know? And I said, okay. And it was one of those days, I was so blue. And it was one of those days when you can't accept love. You're just at the bottom of the barrel. And I was late, and I'm never late. As you know, I'm obsessive compulsive when it comes to time. And I hit the ground apologizing. It's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Wayne wasn't there yet. And there was this guy, young guy, shaved head, bright blue-green eyes, cute as a bug's ear, in these bright purple weightlifting pants. He said, oh, that's cool, that's cool. I just went down the street, I got these pants. These are the best pants in the world. I'm never going to wear another pair of pants. And I'm going, who are you? And he said, let's play. And we started playing. And something snapped. Like something just clicked into place. And it was like falling in love, but it was visceral, but it wasn't sexual. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And we started playing. And in the middle of it, we took a break, and he said, listen, I just wrote this song. Can you listen to it? And I'll play it for you. You've got good ears. I said, yeah, okay. I said, let me watch your hands. He said, why? I said, because I studied with a bass player. I need to see your hands if this is based on your bass lines. And I'm watching him, and he's going, you have it. I said, okay. And we got up, and George said, we just got this new song. And Wayne said, how does it go? And we both turned in unison and said, watch. And we were already finishing each other's sentences. And we played this piece. And a guy who was sitting at one of the tables basically put his head in his hands and started sobbing. And I looked at George, and George looked at me, and we just went, this is not average.
Right, this is not normal.
You know,
no.
This is something special. And we just took it from there, and we just kept playing. And every time we played, it was like, we were like little kids. Oh, look, I have a new toy. Let me show you my new toy. And
I felt the same when you did Boatman. The first time I ever saw you and George perform, I freaked out because I'd never heard the song. I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard anything like it. I didn't know if it was folk or jazz. I wasn't sure how to define it.
I still don't know how to define it.
Right.
I still, and that was funny because we were rehearsing, and George said, "Do you like pentatonic music?" I said, "Yes, I do." And he played me this piece, and he hummed the melody to me, and it stuck in my head. And by the time I'd taken the streetcar home, I'd written it. I'd written the words, and I had the arrangement in my head. And I called him up, and I said, "I got it." He said, "What?" I said, "The Boatman," because he had based it on this ancient Chinese poem about a man poling down, I believe it was the Yangtze, and in the morning light, in the morning mist, and it's like, oh yeah, I know this song. I know this song, we just haven't written it yet, but I know it. And we played it, and it was like, holy moly, yeah, this is it. It's, a lot of my stuff that I write, though, comes to me that way. It's like, I know a piece, it just sort of all comes at once.
You did 2 records with Kevin Barrett, the great guitarist.
Oh.
And you also have that intricate, interweaving, finish each other's sandwiches thing, right?
Yep.
The song, was it called Veronica? What was...
No, Valerie.
Valerie, the Valerie song.
Valerie tune.
Yeah, Valerie tune. What was... Tell me about that one. That's a special tune.
It is a special tune, thanks. I used to live in the upper beaches in Toronto, and around the corner and down the street was a kind of a halfway house, a sheltered place for people who follow a slightly different rhythm from the rest of the world, right? They were people who were fragile and needed the shelter, but could function mostly. And in this place lived this lady, Valerie. And Valerie, had she had the same marbles as the rest of us, or most of the same marbles, would have been one of those women you see walking down the street and you go, that woman has style, man. She can put it together. As is, they got all their clothing from charities, and they got them by the pound, right? And Valerie would go through every single piece of clothing until she found exactly the right outfit. And she'd you know, carefully put her makeup on every morning, you know, made sure that the circles of rouge were just perfect, and the lipstick and the whole bit. And she did, on occasion, when she was concerned, wrap her head in tinfoil to keep out aliens. But, you know, if she wrapped her head in tinfoil, she didn't wear gold jewelry because, you know, that'd be mixing your metals, and she didn't do that. She really knew who she was, right? And she was just different from everybody else. And one day, I had been, it's like this close to getting a gig at a 5-star hotel in Cairo. With the late, great Bob Fenton as my pianist.
What a great piano player.
Oh,
a nice guy.
Wonderful man. Wonderful. Him, Bob Erlinson's another one. Like, I have been blessed by being able to play with such spectacularly gifted, but also kind, giving, marvelous, big-hearted musicians, instrumentalists who I adore. But anyway, so we'd gotten so close. And then it was many, many years ago, and a bunch of Jewish tourists had been killed at Luxor on purpose. And all of a sudden, the person who was arranging the tour, because I was excited, man. I was going to have an apartment on the Nile. I was going to have staff. Like, I was excited. I was excited. And she said, what's your maiden name? I said, Shapiro. She said, and what was it before then? I said, Shaposhnikov. She said, you're Jewish. I said, I am. I said, I don't practice, but I am absolutely Jewish. She said, it's not safe. I said, are you sure? She said, yeah. I said, I would think it'd be safer than ever right now. She said, nope, we're not taking the risk, so I didn't get to do it. And I was bummed. Because when you're really young, you think, this is the only
it's my
time
only
in
break.
Life. Yes,
Right,
I'll
exactly.
never be able to go back. Since then, I've been back a couple of times.
Right.
But it's and I was sitting on a park bench feeling terribly sorry for myself. And Valerie comes shambling up and sits down on the bench next to me and goes, okay, honey, what's the problem? And I went, Valerie, I'm not going to go to Egypt. I'm not going to go to Cairo. I can't go. They canceled the contract. She went, oh, honey, you think you got it so rough. Do you think I just buy this stuff? Do you think I can get to Paris this year? I have to buy off the rack. Do you think this is easy? It ain't easy, hon. And she goes, continuing the conversation by herself, walking down the street. And I watched her walk away, and I had this light bulb go off in my head, and I went, yeah, she's got the right idea. Okay. And I went home, and I wrote the song. And it starts out, I didn't go to Cairo today, and my Mercedes-Benz did not arrive. You know, and it's, I don't know where she is. I don't even know if she's still alive. They closed down the halfway house because of funding, so I don't know where she went, but you know what? I hope she's well, and if she isn't here anymore, I hope she either found another life that's a little better for her, or she's at peace, because she taught me one of the best lessons in the world.
Right. When you hear it coming from her, you're like, who am I to be all whiny about this?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, she's lived through hell. She's been on the street. She's, you know, she's schizophrenic, right? She's got her issues, but damned if she wasn't just wise as Solomon, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so cool.
For after Kevin, you did some work with Don Braden, wonderful album, great sax player, and then into Broadway.
Yes.
That is entertaining and crazy. Was that your idea? Was that Heather Bamberg's or Diane Leah? Whose idea was that?
Yes.
All of your ideas.
Okay, so Heather and I, as you know, because we've been together on a couple of
Royal Jelly Orchestra shows.
Royal Jelly Orchestra, and on some of the safaris and stuff. So Heather and I've known Heather since she came to Toronto. And when I don't even know how old she was then. She was a kid. And
right, U of T. She was just studying music.
U of T, and working with the Beehives and working with the Royal Jelly Orchestra. And she had these pipes. And she had clarity of tone that is her hallmark, right? Like, she sings like a bell. But she's a nut bar, right? She's crazy, and she's quite brilliant, but she's funny as hell. She's funny as hell. And we love to laugh, and we can set each other off, as you know. We have stopped one or two of your shows because we were laughing so hard.
At parties or on stage, right?
When we couldn't talk, right? Because we were laughing so hard. But our blend was always kind of supernatural, because I do not have a bell-like voice, you know, and I mean, I've got a weird range. I sing mezzo down to baritone, and Heather's absolutely a soprano into alto. Like, we are disparate in our tone and in our ranges, but we love to sing together, and we'd make it work because we both have good ears. So we'd find the way to match and meld. So one day, Diane, Leah, and I were doing a gig down on Church Street at a place that doesn't exist anymore, called Statler's, which was this magical place in its heyday, where it was a great place to play music. And right in the middle of the village, and just accepting of everything and everybody, and it was wonderful. So Diane and Heather had been at a church fundraising golf tournament that afternoon. And, you know, they run around. I didn't know this. Do you know when you're at golf tournaments, they like travel around with beer on little carts? I didn't know that. So anyhow, Diane had left early and stopped drinking. Heather perhaps had not. And we said, you know, come to the gig, sit in, do a song. So we are in the middle of the gig, and she comes in, and before I can even invite her up, she's in her cups, man. She's hysterical. She comes walking onto the stage, and I think the first song we did, and Diane and I by this time are laughing our butts off, because it's like Heather's just walked on stage. It's like, here, girl, have a microphone. And Diane said, let's do Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? And we hadn't rehearsed anything. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And we did it, and it locked. It just locked. And you could have heard a pin drop in the middle of this bar, right? And we just looked at each other and went, oh shit, we need to do something, the three of us.
And as a trio without any other instrumentation.
No other instruments. And well, you know me, I like space, right?
Yeah.
I love space. It's the whole George and me thing and Kevin and me thing. I love it. And Diane thought, well, we're only going to do this if I book a gig. So she immediately booked a gig and informed us the gig had been booked. And we were like, oh shit, I guess we better have some material. Okay, let's rehearse. So for a while, we rehearsed every Wednesday. We would rehearse every Wednesday after I was done with my day job. And we'd get together and half of the time we were laughing so hard we couldn't talk. And, you know, it was hysterical. It was wonderful. And we still do that. I mean, even when we're on stage, if something hits one of us or two of us or all three of us at the same time, we have had to stop shows. We've had to stop symphony shows because we were laughing so hard we couldn't breathe. Like we couldn't function, and we had to go, okay, hang on, maestro, just give us a minute here. It's funny, and we discovered that Diane, who is Louise Patrice, musical director, and who's been a theatrical musical director for years, and just retired as the musical director of the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto, which, let's face it, kicks ass.
Yep.
And she's done things like she was the musical director for Jack Layton's funeral. Like she's heavy. Diane has incredible chops. She is an incredible musician, classically trained, incredible classical chops. But man, can she play in accompaniment. And we just built these shows.
2 records out, right? With
2
Broadway?
records. One called Old Friends, which is great fun, and the other is a quite irreverent Christmas album called "It's the Most Wonderful Time Maybe," and I mean we've got some serious pieces in there, but Diane has this ability to take the 2 very different timbres and ranges that Heather and I possess and make it work.
Yep.
So we have beautiful arrangements. I will say they are insanely difficult. Some of them are redonkulous, like redonkulously hard. By the same token, I wouldn't change a note.
Yep.
I wouldn't change.
Hey, I remember with the Royal Jelly Orchestra, we had a big band album called Seriously Happy. You walked in and nailed the chart in 1 take, and that was a very difficult Ross Wooldridge chart that you had to do. It was a fun chart. It was a fun chart.
Oh, that was so much fun. I remember the look on your face because you were in the booth and it's like, we don't need another take. I said, you sure you don't want another take?
Yeah.
Like, I could do another take. Do you want me? How was that note? Because he wanted me to hit that note. I think it was I don't know, it was high. I don't remember the chart anymore. But it was high, and you went, nope, everything's perfect. I went, okay.
Yep.
I'm
also, good. Nature's Way at Puck's Farm. We recorded that. What a beautiful song that is.
And what a beautiful day that was.
So you've guessed it on many records. You've made 5 of your own, well, with Broadway and your own stuff. 6, actually, right? Mm-hmm. So what next? What is the record you haven't made that's in your heart that you're like, I want to do this?
Oh, there's a bunch. But the next thing I want to do is, I love stories. Like, you know this about me.
Yes, you can sing Lyle Lovett like nobody.
And this is the point. I think Lyle Lovett is one of the best storytellers we have. And
wait, I just brought that up, and you're actually going to go there?
Oh yeah, I'm going to go there.
I had no idea.
I've had the great good luck of connecting with a wonderful producer in New York named Mark Ruffin. And you know him from Sirius Satellite,
absolutely,
XM Jazz Radio. And I want to do jazz arrangements. I'm working on jazz arrangements of Lyle Lovett tunes because the man travels with a 29-piece jazz big band. His theme music is Blues Walk by Clifford Brown. You cannot tell me this man can't swing.
Right.
He totally swings. But people see the slide guitar and they see the cowboy boots and it's like he's a cowboy. It's like he's a Texas horseman, I'll give you that. But he's also an incredible storyteller, an incredible writer. So that's I think
it's a great idea.
I think it's the next thing on the horizon. So we're I'll be working on the fundraising for that. And the other thing though, I mean there's so many things. I mean I'd love to do an album of just the incredible music my friends have written and let me sing. Things, Tony Corrington, who's a hell of a composer. Diane Leah has written great, there's all, George Koller has written great pieces. Kevin Barrett's written great pieces. I just heard, I was doing a New Year's gig.
Steal It Away by Big Ru Jake. You could nail that tune.
Steal It Away is one by Big Ru Jake. The other one that's the closest to my heart is Speakeasy.
Oh, yes, yes.
It is one of my favorite things that he's ever written. I think it shows who he actually is. I mean, Big Ru Jake is
the bar's closing and he's a softie.
And he's a softie, and but he really is. Like when I first met him, he was Big Ru Jake, and he was big, and he was, and he's Jake, right? He's Jake. He's got no filters, but he's brilliant. Again, he's an incredibly brilliant man, and he writes remarkable stories. Like, I think he's like Canada's Tom Waits. He just writes insanely good stories. Funny, The Girl in the Pink Canoe. Like, these are funny stories. Some of them are absolutely heartbreaking. Gotham. Like, anything he puts his pen to is just fine.
That's a good idea, and that could be a government grant to do Canadian music that you could make more famous.
The other thing, well, that ties into something else I want to do. I would love to do, and if anybody from Canada Council is watching, I want to do this. The other project I'm working on is I want to do a symphony show of Canadian pop tunes. So I want to do things by Gord Downie, things by Jan Arden, things by, obviously, Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell. I think Tom Sawyer by Rush with a string section. Think about it. I mean, that line, that one hook, is begging. Can you imagine that with a full orchestra? It'd be mind-scrambling. We have incredible composers in this country, and people don't know them. And I think working in symphony, I've had the great good luck both with Broads and on my own to do symphony pieces, to do symphony work. And I love working with a symphony because if you can get them to swing, it changes people's perspective on what is jazz, on what is popular music, on what is and in this case, what is the Canadian story? Stan Rogers, Gordon Lightfoot, to do four strong winds with a symphony, to do something that's come out of quartet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are brilliant writers and wonderful stories. And it's the Canadian story. And I became a Canadian. I wasn't born here. I was born in the United States, but
New Jersey.
Worse, I was born on an army base in New Jersey. But I came here when I was 12 and fell madly in love. I mean, I remember standing outside the riverboat. I was 12 years old.
In Yorkville, yeah.
In Yorkville. I was too young to go in there back then. And I was with my family. It was our first night walking around Toronto. We just moved here from Detroit. And I stood outside and saw and listened to this guy and this gal sing. He was wearing a cowboy hat. She was beautiful, had long black hair. And they sang this song called Four Strong Winds.
Right, Ian and Sylvia, yeah.
And I sat there and I cried. I just stood there, and someone, actually, a stranger on the street, came up to me and said, "Are you okay, little one?" And I went, "Yeah, it's that." I still get all verklempt. And I remember telling Sylvia this years and years and years later, and she said, "You heard us?" I said, "You changed everything."
Welcome to Toronto.
Welcome to Toronto. Holy Moses. And so as soon as I could, I became a citizen. So I'm very proud of this country.
And we are glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Hey, good luck on the new records. I don't know which one's coming out first, but go, girl, go.
Thank you, honey.
What a pleasure.
Thanks, Jaymz. And just for the record, the fact that you do this, the fact that you have never given up your faith in live music, in all manner and sundry of types of jazz and poetry and live performance is huge, and I am grateful. as are many other people. Thanks, honey.
Love you.
Love you back.
Thank you, Julie Michels. All right, we'll be back next week with more on the Jaymz B podcast. See you next Friday.